Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Some people said no. Let's try this again. Good evening, everyone. Is that better? Awesome. I need for you all to give me a little energy, and I need you to look at your neighbor and say neighbor.
Neighbor.
Do it a little bit louder. Say neighbor.
Neighbor.
You're in the right place at the right time. Okay, let's do that one more time. Say neighbor. Neighbor. You're in the right place at the right time. Now give yourselves a round of an applause. I am Dr. Tiffany Crutcher, founder and executive director of the Terrence Crutcher Foundation. I am also a descendant of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, and also my two-time great-grandfather was a Creek freedman, and I'm so extremely proud. You all can clap for that. I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but I just remember a little under a year ago, I was standing in this position the day before a historic trial when we were getting ready to go and fight for the 3 last known living survivors, Mother Fletcher, Mother Randall, and Uncle Red. And I had this great expectancy in my heart. I knew in my bones that we were going to win, that we were going to get a victory. Everyone, I feel that same way today. Do you feel expectancy in your heart? And so we need for you all to show up really quick. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Rhonda Grayson and Jeff with the Creek Freedmen Band. Give it up, our plaintiffs. If you're a Creek Freedman, please stand up. If you're a Creek Freedman, please stand up. Give them a hand. You all can do better than that. They've been fighting a long time. And I also want to just shout out the teams, the dynamic teams that's been working so hard to keep this in the spotlight. The Justice for Greenwood team, give it up for Justice for Greenwood. And the Terrence Crutcher Foundation, give it up for Terrence Crutcher Foundation. And so if you are ready, I need for you to scream, I'm ready. I'm ready. Scream, I'm ready. I'm ready. Scream, I'm ready. I'm ready. It is my esteemed privilege and my honor to introduce our special guest for this evening. I have a tremendous amount of respect for this young lady, Tiffany Cross. Tiffany Cross is the former host of MSNBC, The Cross Connection. She is the author of Say It Louder, Black Voters, White Narratives, and Saving Our Democracy. And most recently, she served as a resident fellow at Harvard Kennedy School's Institute of Politics. Y'all got to give it up for that. Man, I love y'all's energy. Her broad experience across media, politics, and policy includes more than 2 decades of navigating newsrooms and campaigns while engaging different constituencies on the ground. She previously served as the DC Bureau Chief of BET News and the liaison to Obama administration for BET Networks, where she covered Capitol Hill, produced political specials, and oversaw the daily operations of the news department. Tiffany also transitioned from the control room to the green room when she co-founded the Beat DC, a national platform intersecting politics, policy, business, media, and people of color. And so it is my honor to present to some and introduce to others my sister, the illustrious, the dynamic, the truth-telling, the phenomenal, none other than Tiffany Cross. Give it up.
Hi, everybody. Can y'all hear me all right? Anytime I get to be with my people, it's a beautiful day. So thank y'all for coming out, and thank you to the better Tiffany for that amazing introduction. And truly, I'm so happy to be here with you all. It is my honor, my privilege, but also my responsibility to be here. And so I don't take that lightly. And I'm just humbled that y'all came out because I know it's been a week long of activities and decades, really over a century of injustice that this community has faced. And even though I don't live here, when I leave, I carry Tulsa with me everywhere, and I wear it like clothing. And I'm always in solidarity with this community. So please know that. And I am so excited to share the stage with this brother who I met, I want to say in 2021, during when we honored 100 years after the massacre. And I love the saying he always says, law is my ministry, justice is my passion. So y'all already know him, but he's one of my favorite human beings. So please help me welcome Damario Solomon-Simmons. All right.
What's up, Tiffany?
I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm so happy. Hey, give it up again for Tiffany Cross. It's so good to have you back in Tulsa.
It's an honor to be here. And I have to say, it's always an honor to share space with people who are truth tellers and who do not center the comfort of other folks when it means denying ourselves our own justice. So I stand in solidarity with you always. And I'll be honest, you were the first person to tell me this history about the freedmen. So thank you for that. And I take it as my responsibility to help carry that story in as many places as I can. Now, you've been fighting for the rights of Black Creeks for more than 2 decades now. It's a long time. Yep. I wasn't even born when you started this fight. I kid. But this is personal for you. Tell us why it's personal for you.
You know, it's personal because I am a Black Creek Indian. My grandfather, my four-time great-grandfather, Cal Tom, came on a Trail of Tears from the Southeast United States, came here to what's now called Oklahoma Indian Territory. He helped build up the nation like so many other Black Creeks. And when the Civil War happened in the 1860s, he was elevated to a chief. And he actually saved the lives of a couple thousand Creeks who were starving to death at Fort Gibson. And he was able to get them food, shelter, and save their lives. And then at the end of the Civil War, Cal Tom was one of 5 individuals who negotiated and signed the Creek Treaty of 1866, which among other things ended all enslavement of Creeks of African descent in the Creek Nation. And it also gave us Creeks of African descent full 100% citizenship rights and all those benefits. You know, so for my family to be a part of this, going back to the late 1700s, and then for some arbitrary act to snatch us of our birthright in 1979, you know, it's just something I can't stomach and allow to happen.
Yeah, it's hard to even imagine because we were talking a bit in the other room there about when you have an oppressed people adopt the behavior of the oppressor. Right. And this is what this feels like to me. This is your clients have been fighting for this a long time. Why exactly is citizenship so important to them?
Well, and my clients are right here, Jeff and Rhonda.
We honor you.
Go ahead, stand up, give us some more love. Because Jeff and Rhonda just represent the tens of thousands of Black Creek Indians, the organization, the Muscogee Creek Indian Freedmen Band, which Jeff is the vice president, Rhonda is the president, and we also have Sharon Lindsay Scott. They've been on the front lines since 2008. And, you know, we've talked about this a lot. You know, why would you want to go and force yourself into a space when people are telling you we don't want you? Mm-hmm. And my general default, if you don't want me, I don't want you.
Yeah.
But it's not their decision and choice to say they don't want us because that is ours. Okay. They are trying to take from us what is rightfully ours, which is our birthright, based upon not only our blood lineage of who we are, but the sweat, labor, and equity of those Black Creeks of African descent that were actually enslaved. Like Black Creeks and other Black Native Americans are some of the most heavily documented people in the world. So we're able to look back on our documentation and we can tell you if we were enslaved or if our ancestor was enslaved, who actually enslaved our ancestor. We can do that. Mm-hmm. Like we know that Rhonda Grayson's great-great-great-grandmother, Kitty Williams, was enslaved by a Creek by the name of William Reed. We know that. And so they owe us. They owe us for what we have already done and what we put the sweat equity into this nation. And quiet is kept. If it was not for the Creek freedmen, the Creek Nation may not even be here today. And that's a fact. And that's not me saying that. As I see my other client, Ron Graham, who's been in this fight. Y'all give it up for Ron Graham. Ron Graham is one of the greatest genealogists in the nation. And he is a tremendous historian of Black Creek history. His father, Theodore Graham, was an original enrollee. And he's been on this fight. He's been trying to be enrolled in the Creek Nation, Ron Graham, since 1983.
Wow.
And so when you ask, he's been rejected time and time again, but why would he do that? And when I have those conversations, say like with Ron or Jeff or Sharon, because it's our birthright. And it's because our ancestors. It's the nation of our ancestors. See, when we were born during the Creek Nation, we were Creeks. We were not Africans. We were not African Americans. We were not U.S. Americans. We were not U.S. citizens. We were Creek citizens. Our people spoke Creek. They worshiped Creek. They ate Creek. They believed to be Creek. And so you try to take something that is ours, deeply embedded, hundreds and hundreds of years. When the white man showed up in America, we were here. Okay. Because the Creek Nation is just a confederacy of different peoples, right? Like the Yamasees and the Uchis and many other people that were already dark-skinned, that were already here. And so now that they have been infected, the nation as we see now with the germ of white supremacy, which is the most dangerous disease in this world, has killed billions of people. It has enslaved hundreds of millions of people. It has stolen trillions of dollars. The disease of white supremacy is the same disease that's infecting the Creek Nation. But we intend to destroy that tomorrow.
All right. I love Damario's energy and your pat. Every time I talk to you, I leave angrier. Just speaking the truth. But let me ask you, because every time I'm here, the history is so rich, like it's palpable. Walking around, when I was trying to find a place for lunch, and I was told it's only one Black-owned place really in the neighborhood, I just got infuriated all over, considering what happened in this community. Why is community support so important here in Tulsa? But also for folks like me, when I leave, what can I say to encourage people? Like, why is their support needed on a national level?
Absolutely, because our narrative, at a time when we're literally at war, right? Our enemies are trying to prevent us from learning, even talking about our history. Our enemies are starving us of economic resources. They are shooting us down in the street, state violence for just walking around, driving around, riding a bicycle. So it's very important that we be protective of our narratives, right? So in the narrative here in Tulsa is, for instance, people want to say, oh, Tulsa's triumphed over racism. Oh, Tulsa is Greenwood is rising. But as you stated, when you walked around and seen all the gentrification, all the high-rise buildings, at the end of the day, how many do we own?
Right.
At the end of the day, how is that money coming back to us? I was just thinking about something, just because I'm always thinking about these things. Just recently, it's an example why you have to always protect our history. Just recently, Major League Baseball just announced that they're going to have a new baseball game, EA Sports, video game. I love video games. Anybody else love video games? I love video games. And in this video game, they're going to feature 10 to 12 of the former Negro League players, which sounds like a great idea, right? It's fantastic. And they're going to give $1 for each actual CD or game that's sold to the Negro Leagues Museum. Again, sounds fantastic. But when I read the article further, I kept looking, I was saying, well, how much are you paying the families of those players?
Right.
Zero, from what I can see. And that's what I'm talking about. We have to always stand on our history. You cannot erase us. You go down to the Creek Nation tomorrow or whenever we go, you don't see anything about Black Creeks. You don't see anything about Cal Tom. You don't see anything about Ketch Barnett or Henry Island or Silas Jefferson. These Black Creeks have served in the House of Kings, the House of Warriors, which is equivalent to the U.S. Senate, U.S. House of Representatives, as judges, as chiefs. We're just erased. And we have to stand up in this moment where literally we're at war for our very lives and our history, and make it known that we will do everything we can to make sure that our children and children's children know our story.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's interesting that you're having this fight at this time because you all see what's happening across the country. We're, like you said, fighting for our lives. We're also fighting for our story. Yeah. Telling our story, it has such credo in our communities because so much of what we know about our history came from our homes, our community. We didn't learn a lot in school. And so now you see, it kind of feels like, we know that the barbaric behavior of what happened during enslavement has never really been discussed in a real way and never really been talked about. And so it feels like America is saying, well, we know this is an ugly stain on this country. If we change the narrative, if we just stop talking about it, then we don't have to carry around that guilt. Then we can stop hearing about it. Because I tell you, I really think they feel like this racial reckoning, like they are over it, I'm so tired of talking about George Floyd and, Black people. And it's like, well, try living with it, try living with the crushing oppression of racism every day. And what happens here, you live alongside the descendants of homicidal maniacs who took lives and took your livelihood. That's right. And somehow we managed to never try to overthrow the government, So...
And they want us to be happy about that. They want us to be cool that we have to live with the same people's descendants who destroyed everything and are living the lives that we should be living as the descendants of other people of Black Wall Street and Creek freedmen. They're living that life and we should be okay with it.
Right. It's always a question of, they have to be comfortable with this progress. Right. And so it's hard to liberate minds to say, you have to stop centering your existence in what makes them comfortable. Right. So I bring that up to say the federal government has a role to play here. No question. Believe you and I have hung out many times in DC. I'm pleased to say for the first time, this country has an indigenous Interior Secretary in Deb Haaland, former Congresswoman. I'm curious, has she weighed in on this issue, and what do you think is the role of the federal government in this fight?
Man, great question. Thank you. Before I answer that, I want to give a shout out to my beautiful wife, Mia Fleming, is in the back there.
Stand up, Mia.
I could not be doing anything that I'm doing without her tremendous support, guidance, and mentorship. Y'all think I say crazy stuff now. If I didn't have Mia, that's an excellent question. I'm so glad you brought up Deb Haaland, who I think is an outstanding public official. I'm so glad she's in her position, the first Native American woman or Native American to be the Department of Interior Secretary. But I would ask her, and I ask everyone that's listening to this, even in this room and online, to contact Deb Haaland and say, Deb Haaland, we need you to step up. We need you to stop the anti-Black discrimination that Creek freedmen are experiencing, and Choctaw freedmen are experiencing, and Chickasaw freedmen are experiencing, and she could do that today. In May, I tell you what, May 12, 2021, Deb Haaland came out with a public statement where she specifically stated she was giving praise to the Cherokee Nation. And I give props to the Cherokee Nation. We're in Cherokee Nation right now. Greenwood was part Cherokee Nation, part Creek Nation. So we're actually standing in the Cherokee Nation, and they've done the right thing, the Cherokee Nation. They have totally decided, we was wrong to disadvantage our Black Cherokees. And they've totally accepted them back in. They put money into the programs, and I just give props. And let's give it up for Chief Hoskins and Chief Bill John Baker that made that happen. So in May of 2021, the Cherokee Nation created a new constitution. And they said, look, we should have never, ever said anything about by blood is the only way you can be a Cherokee. It was wrong. It was racist. And we'll never do that again. Deb Haaland publicly thanked the Cherokee Nation. And she told them that this was the right thing to do, and she was happy to see it. But she also stated the last line of that release. She said she calls upon the other nations, including the Creek Nation, to fulfill their legal and moral obligation to their freedmen. So she knows that what they're doing is illegal. She knows that what they're doing is in violation of Article 2 of the Creek Treaty of 1866. She has stated as such publicly. But now we need her to use the awesome power of her office and reach out to the Creek Nation and say today, we will not recognize your government if you do not recognize the rights of Black Creek freedmen.
That's an excellent strategy. I'm curious how the Creek community responds to this. Are there any members of the other side of the Creek Nation, or is anybody in solidarity with?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely have a lot of people in solidarity that are actual Creek citizens. And I like the way you phrase that, because we're very clear as Creeks of African descent. We may not be recognized by them as citizens of the nation right now legally, but we are as Creek as anybody else that's ever walked the face of this earth. And we take great offense when anyone, including some members of the Creek Nation government, tries to say, well, why should we have to admit non-Creeks into the Creek Nation? And that is an offensive, racist thing to say, and it's defamatory, because we know our history. We know who we are. We are Creek. And we have members who are actually enrolled in the Creek Nation as citizens today that support us. And I think the vast majority of the Creek citizens actually support us, because I think the vast majority of people, just like the United States, are decent people. But those that stay in power, they want to keep a small group in power. And they want to lean upon the Confederate nature of some of those Creeks. Remember, the Creek Nation enslaved Creeks of African descent. Remember, the Creek Nation, mostly these assimilated Creeks, adopted plantation-style economies. Remember, in 1861, the Creek Nation signed a treaty with the Confederate States of America, because the Confederate States of America, their agent, Albert Pike, said, hey, if you fight with us and we win, you can keep your enslaved Africans, your enslaved Creeks. So we got to remember that's that strain, that white supremacist strain that we're fighting to this day. So anyone within the Creek Nation that is fighting our citizenship rights, our equal rights, our birth rights, they're doing nothing more than being a Confederate, like those ancestors who enslaved Creeks of African descent.
Absolutely. I don't know how you see it any other way. And the other interesting thing about this is you really are bookended at these two key cases that center reparations. Right. This is all a reparations issue.
Right.
How does one influence the other? If, I say if, but we should speak life into what we want. Absolutely. When you are successful in this fight, how will that influence your fight for the Greenwood descendants and survivors?
Well, again, because Greenwood, the co-founders of Greenwood are the Black Creeks, you cannot even have justice for Greenwood without justice for Black Creeks. It's impossible. You got to have that. We did something miraculous last year that hadn't been done in 100 years. We were able to survive a motion to dismiss for a Tulsa race massacre case. It hadn't been done in the nation for any race massacre case of Black people who have been destroyed. So I just believe that we're doing the right thing. We're doing God's work. And I believe that when you're doing God's work, God is vested in your success, so you cannot lose.
And I think it's really important, and this is how to make this a national issue. Our media struggles with centering us in conversation, also architects of this country. Right. But there is a lot of conversation around reparations. Some state legislatures have approved reparations, and I wonder how this case would influence the larger conversation.
Yeah, because if I always said that Tulsa is the most important case for national reparations for these reasons. One, we have living survivors, all right? Because one of the main things that people talk about with reparations, like for enslavement, they say, well, no one's alive that was enslaved. Okay, that's a frivolous argument, but we have 3 people that are still alive. 2, we have documented evidence. We have video, we have pictures, we have hundreds of insurance claims. You have 40 square blocks that was burnt down that caused $200+ million in property damage. Like, it's tangible, it's real. And we know who did it. The same entities that perpetrated the massacre are the same entities that are benefiting from the history of the massacre today. The city of Tulsa, the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce, Tulsa County, the Tulsa Sheriff's Department, the state of Oklahoma, right? These are the same entities. And so I believe we will win. But if we as a nation of Black people and people who believe in truth, justice, and equality and reparations as a whole cannot win, we have living survivors, documentary evidence, video, pictures, insurance claims, and the perpetrators of the massacre are still alive, then how can we win any other reparations issue? The good news is we are winning in Tulsa. We're going to win overall, and that will give us the blueprint and the momentum, because we need to win as a people to win overall.
One last question. I have 18 more questions, but Damario has to go fight for justice. But I think I'll close with this because it's important to understand the process. So what exactly is going to happen tomorrow, and how do you see this playing out logistically? Like, what should we be waiting for?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So in the morning, we will go down to Okmulgee, Oklahoma, and we expect a lot of our supporters to show up. We'll go to what they call the Mound Building, which is a traditional shaped building where the district court is located. Our judge, Danette Mauser, actually allowed, the courtroom is very small. So it holds about 40, 50 people. But she's actually going to allow people to go into an overflow room, which is their national council room that holds about 250 people. So it will be live streamed. We're very excited about that. We push for that. We thank the judge for allowing that. And the trial will start. We're ready for trial. We're excited about trial. My tremendous Justice for Greenwood team and the Solomon-Simmons staff. In fact, I see my legal team back there. Stand up back there, ladies. Kim and Beatrice and Emma doing a tremendous work. And then you see the larger Justice for Greenwood team. If you have a Justice for Greenwood shirt, stand up. Out here we got DJ, we got Emma, we got Elantrice, Greta, Sade, Jerica, and of course we got my guy Tyrone Lynn here with me. So we're gonna go down there, we're gonna put on, I always say, we're put on a compelling case. We're gonna put on a simple case. We're gonna put on a winning case. We're going to tell the judge, hey, she's going to hear why the Treaty of 1866 mandates. It's not, she doesn't have, now I'm not the judge, but the law says she has to admit Jeff and Rhonda for citizenship because they are time back lineal descendants of individuals on the Creek Freedmen Road. And the Treaty of 1866 guarantees individuals of Creeks of African descent on the Creek Freedmen Road citizenship. That's what I'm going to say to her. And then I'm gonna show her the evidence. The good news is we have a fantastic, outstanding expert witness, outstanding African-American female professor by the name of Professor Carla Pratt, who's at the University of Oklahoma. She's gonna testify, talk about treaty interpretation. And the Creek Nation has already admitted they have zero evidence. They have zero evidence that the Treaty of 1866 Article 2 has been abrogated. That's the legal term. In other words, they have zero evidence that it's no longer enforced. So I'm simply telling the judge, if they have zero evidence that it's not enforced, I have evidence that these people are Creek Freedmen descendants. Here's the treaty, judge, you have to grant the citizenship. And once we grant the citizenship for Jeff and Rhonda, because they're basically stand-ins, okay? Standing for all the Creek Freedmen throughout this community and throughout this nation. Every Creek Freedman that can prove they're a lineal descendant, pursuant to the treaty, should have citizenship. And I want to be real clear about this. You can't put a price tag on someone's heritage. It's our birthright. But there are tangible benefits and tangible resources that will come with being a Creek citizen. Right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there are thousands of Black individuals that should be Creek citizens. And right here today, as I sit and talk to you today, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black people live 11 to 14 years less than white citizens. Primarily, two primary reasons for that, because of lack of proper nutrition and lack of access to health care. You become a citizen of the Creek Nation, the next day you can go and get free health care through the federal government in the Creek Nation. We're talking about something that can change lives and generations of lives overnight, immediately. You need help with housing, that's something they can help you with. You have some kids that's going to school and you need some educational benefits, some educational scholarships, that's available for you through the Creek Nation because you are a Creek citizen. You know, during COVID, the Creek Nation received a couple $2 billion from federal funding. And they gave each Creek citizen $4,500. Now, the federal government, or the United States government, gave people about $2,000, $2,500. They gave people $4,500 cash stipend payment into their pockets. So all those Creek freedmen that should have received that money, it literally was stolen from them. Literally was taken from them. Also, there's money that the Creek Nation has received for payment of land that was stolen back in the 1830s. And that money has come into the Creek Nation. That money should have been shared, and Creek freedmen should have had an opportunity to participate in those resources. And that money has been stolen by the nation by not allowing Creek freedmen to participate in Creek programs. So this is a very tangible, necessary, and beneficial for Black people who are also Creeks.
That's a very compelling case you just laid out here. And I know you have to run, and we'll open this up for Q&A. Maybe Damario will stay, we'll see. But I know you have to go, but I would just say, to hear you put it like that, it is, when people started using the term racial reckoning, I mean, you know what I immediately thought.
Right.
We ain't come up with that.
Right.
Racial reckoning. But what you're doing kind of erases that whole racial reckoning and shows that a freed people are a people to be reckoned with.
That's right.
And so as you go into this fight, all the way from the nation's capital, I stand with you in solidarity. I'm so humbled and impressed that all these folks stand with you in solidarity. And I know there are hundreds of other people who couldn't be here tonight who are with you in solidarity. And if it's one thing that when everybody leaves and we go back, what's the one thing we can do? You told us about Secretary Holland. Should we post, tweet, IG, anything?
Absolutely. Everybody should send a note. First of all, follow us at Justice for Greenwood. Follow me at Attorney Damario. But I would, again, encourage you to contact anyone that you know and ask them to join you in contacting Deb Holland. And ask Deb Holland to stand with Creek freedmen. Ask Deb Holland to do what this Department of Interior did when they stood with Seminole freedmen. Ask Deb Holland to do what the Department of Interior did when they stood with Cherokee freedmen. They stood with the Cherokee freedmen. They filed documents on behalf of the Cherokee freedmen. We need this Department of Interior, the federal government, to stand with Creek freedmen today, right now, and she can do it. I believe she's a person of goodwill. I think she wants to do the right thing, but we need her to do it and not just talk about it.
So in addition to calling her office, if you post about it, be sure to tag her, the Department of Interior, because that's, you know, there are people who check their social media and follow it. I would also say the OPE, Office of Public Engagement at the White House, tag them, you know, tag everybody in the federal government. Because if it gets traction, then there are people who pay attention.
We also, and I've met with her about this, you know, Kristen Clark is someone we are very excited to have as the over the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice. She's a long time litigator for civil rights issue. We know that she believes strongly in civil rights, but if you want to contact someone else, contact Kristen Clark at the Department of Justice and tell them, demand her as a friend. We still have to make demands on our friends to stand up and protect the civil rights of Black Creek Indians. This is one of the very few issues, even though America's getting more and more blatant, but this is literally where they're utilizing a badge of slavery. The fact that people will put on the Creek Freedman Road and say, we don't want you because you are Black on this Creek Freedman Road. There's very little places in America where an official government can actually say that the Creek Nation is doing it. And therefore, Kristen Clark and the Department of Justice is another individual and entity that can step in and say, this is not right, it must stop now.
All right, Chris, next time I see her, I'm going to be sure to mention that.
Please do.
Can you stay for one or two questions, or you got to run?
Yeah, I can stay for one or two questions. Before we ask the question, I just want to tell you something about Tiffany Cross and why we're so excited to have her here. When we were going through getting ready for the centennial, everybody in the world literally was calling us, wanting to do interviews. And my team can tell you that. I mean, we were overloaded with media requests from everybody. And we were trying to be very strategic. And I remember when NBC called and they had all these people wanted to interview with our survivors. And I talked to the survivors about it. And we said, hey, we only want to interview with African-American female. So we only going to interview, we want Tiffany Cross. That's our first choice. If she's not available, we'll interview with Joy Reid. And Tiffany came down. And ever since that day, it was one of the best decisions we made for the Justice for Greenwood fight, because she's been with us ever since that day. All those other camera crews and TV networks that were here and talking about Greenwood, what are they saying about Greenwood now? But Tiffany Cross has never stopped supporting us. She's had me on her show numerous times, over, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 times. Every time I go to DC, she's connecting me with people in government, connecting me people with consultants to help push our thing forward. When our survivors just last month received their Ghanaian citizenship at the Ghanaian embassy, Tiffany Cross came to support that. because she's about it. And that's why I wanted her here tonight, because she stands with us, not because of the cameras, not because it looks good on her show, because she loves Black people and she loves Black Tulsans. So give it up again for Tiffany Cross.
Thank you, Damario, and I'm gonna stand with you in perpetuity. I was so happy when you and Mia came into my life, and they're just, y'all know Damario's amazing. So it's my honor to help in whatever way today and years from now. I don't know how the Q&A is gonna go, so I think I'll just call on people. Is that all right? Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do. Like, are you just fighting for the Creek Chickasaw and all tribes?
This case is specifically for Creek freedmen. We are fighting in the Creek Nation's court system, and that's what this case is about. There are the Choctaw and the Chickasaws are issues that we are aware of, but right now we're focused specifically, exclusively, right, this case on a Creek freedmen.
Okay. I was say my grandmother was freedman as well, and that's what we got roll numbers and everything, and they denied us from getting on the roll numbers. So
Well, definitely, I would ask that you connect with our team at Justice for Greenwood. We are definitely have plans for other things, but we're just focused on the Creek right now, but we want to get your information. We want to connect with you and see if we can help you also. Yes, sir.
Anyone else?
You're sitting right next to the greatest genealogist right there, Ron Graham. You definitely want to get his number.
I have a question. Hello. Susie, thank you so much for being here. Thank you. I'm loud enough. I probably didn't need this. To your knowledge, is anyone in the Cherokee Nation or the Creek Nation reached out to you or Justice for Greenwood to see about participating in the movement to get justice for their citizens who were there that day and suffered the harm of the massacre?
No, and that's a great question, Kate. That's a great question. No, and that's another reason why this is so important and how it works together. The Cherokee Nation and the Creek Nation can be a tremendous help making sure that Tulsa, the Greenwood community, gets the reparation and the justice it deserves, because it was the Cherokee Nation and Creek Nation lands that were destroyed. So not only were the people co-founders of Greenwood, but this is literally still Cherokee and Creek Nation land. They should be at the forefront. They should be joining with Justice for Greenwood and saying, yes, justice and reparations should happen, because you impacted our ability as a nation when you destroyed the most prosperous, the most well-organized, the greatest Black community in the history of this nation with Greenwood.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious, having followed everything, tried to participate. Are you seeing any connection with the resistance you're receiving from the Creek Nation, along with what we have to deal with just right here in this courthouse here in Tulsa? Do you see any coordination going between those folks, or do you think they're not having a meeting before the meeting?
Yeah. I don't have any evidence, any formal coordination, but I think those in positions of power have a vested interest, unfortunately, to maintain the status quo. And part of the status quo here in Tulsa and throughout this nation is for Black people to be on the bottom. And so they are happy to elevate a few Black faces, give them some positions, particularly if they're Black faces that are not from the community. And particularly if they're Black faces that will not push back and say what needs to be said and do what needs to be done. And also be unafraid and apologetic that, hey, I'm just as smart as you, I'm just as credentialed, I have the same degrees, and I can do what you do. And therefore, I see that happen in both sides of positions of power. I do see that.
Yeah, the Black face of white power, I think, is the most dangerous thing that we face. And it takes a lot of work, and even on the thing, as much as I'm on the Facebook fishing information, but it's really difficult to deal with these folks. And it reminds you of COINTELPRO, 2023.
Right.
So it's frightening.
Yeah.
Also, when's the book coming? And did you bring books?
Okay, stay tuned. The smarter Tiffany is going to make an announcement about that. But yes, I did.
Well, listen, guys, it's just so great. So glad to see you all and everybody that joined us online. I got to get out of here and finish our last little things of prep. But keep us in prayer as we go. Have traveling grace, as my grandma would say, and let God speak through me tomorrow. I will be standing on the shoulders of my ancestors, including my grandmother, Johnny Mae Alston-Simmons, who started this journey, started this litigation with us, but passed away 4 years ago. I will be standing speaking to them, so just make sure God is speaking through me and we get the victory. Justice for Greenwood, justice for Greenwood, justice for Greenwood.
Damario, Solomon-Simmons, and Tiffany Cross.
I'm sticking around, so don't leave.
And just really quick, Damario, really quick before you all leave, is there a preacher in the house? Is there someone who could actually just lead us in prayer? Please come to the front really, really quick. Just a brief prayer.
Father God in heaven, we are so grateful for this day. We're grateful for the opportunity to assemble together and to listen and witness those of us who are on the front lines fighting for justice. And Father God, we're praying that you will do what you have always done, and that is show up and show out. God, we're praying that you will live up to your reputation of being the God of the oppressed. And Father God, we're praying now that you will be with Attorney Damario and his team and his staff as they stand up and speak truth to power. We're praying for victory. We trust it. We believe it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
And Tiffany, on behalf of the Justice for Greenwood organization, we would like to present you with this small token of our appreciation. Really quick, just a few quick announcements. Tiffany is going to come back out. Guess what? Justice for Greenwood has a gift for you all too. Tiffany Cross's book, Say It Louder, Black Voters, White Narratives, and Saving Democracy. Justice for Greenwood has decided to gift each and every one of you. Tiffany is going to sign your book. So if you all would line up, yes. And just real quick, a few quick short announcements before you all start lining up. Tomorrow, we kick off this historic trial. We will leave here at 9 a.m. We've chartered a bus for those of you who would like to ride with us. There is a QR code right here in your seat. If you want to sign up, please do that tonight or go back to the back tables. You can ride with us. We will provide lunch. Just wave your hands in the back, everyone. If you would like to ride the bus with us, we're going to have a bus 3 days in a row and make sure that you can get to Okmulgee and back, and we'll pack out this courtroom and this courthouse. You all will get the opportunity to witness history in real time. Also, what else? I think that is it. And I would be remiss if I didn't just acknowledge Mother Margaret Love and Joyce Williams. You got to have some foot soldiers on the ground. Give them a hand right here. They always show up no matter what. And so thank you all. We love you all so much. But if you all would just start lining up, Tiffany Cross is going to come and sign your book, gifted by Justice for Greenwood Foundation. Thank you all so much for coming.